Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monster's Den. Thursday night. I like that. Laszlo's got the give me the money, man. Scare the shit out of you, but give me the money. We're doing something a little bit different tonight. We're changing gears just a little bit. We're kind of moving over to fantasy, although we do cover fantasy every now and then. We're talking about our favorite kind of sword and sorcery films, right? So, barbarians and wizards and maybe dragons and Lord knows what else, scantily clad women and trolls and beasties and whatever, right? But there's got to be some cool sword action, and it could be a film from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 2000s, whatever. Lots of good ones all throughout the years. Let me introduce the crew here. We got the king is here, Mr. Chris Laszlo, Craig Kaminski, Jamie Laszlo, and Dan Brown. Dan's got some wood for the fire, it looks like, behind him.
Look, I got my lumberjack. It's my Wilford Brimley approach.
You're all ready to go. You're ready to go.
Start doing some granola commercials.
So we each picked our 5 favorites that we're going to talk about. We'll go at each turn. We'll each give 2 films.
We were doing 5?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't get the memo?
Oh, you didn't get the memo like 5 hours ago, Chris?
No.
Wing it. Just wing it.
I know. I got the
couple mine.
When did you send me your message? Like 3 in the afternoon? Going,
I don't know.
We're going to do 5 picks tonight. I'm going, what? I was 3. I was like way ahead of the curve, all done.
I thought we were 3, but okay. What do I get?
Yeah, I switched to 5 because Davey said he couldn't make it. I said, all right, so we'll 3 would blow through these in a half hour. So I figure if everybody wants to choose 2 more, just to kind of fill it out.
Roll the dice and figure.
Chris, I won't have you go first, Chris, so you can kind of find 2 more, and we'll start with Dan tonight. So Dan, you want to give us your?
Wait, I've got 3 strong ones and 2 weak ones. Okay,
that's okay. That's
okay.
Fine. Give us your weak ones.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the weak ones. Well, the weak ones. I guess we're going in order, 5 down to 1. Our favorites. We can think.
I'm not.
Okay, there you go. So I like the organization we have here. Okay, next, my first film to talk is a 1961 fantasy film directed by George Pal, who brought us War of the Worlds in 1953. Also had like puppetoons, these stop motion marionettes, and it's a film called Atlantis, the Lost Continent. Interesting film, very simple thing. Demetrius, a fisherman in Greece, they find a boat in the middle of the ocean. There's this beautiful princess on there, of course. You know, her makeup is perfect, and she's on this boat. Come to find, he brings her back to Greece. They fall in love, and she explains to him that she is a princess from Atlantis, and he's going to return her home. So they get on the boat. They go through the Pillars of Hercules, and while they're out there, aside from having like storms and nightmares, they are approached by this. This is where the film, like Atlantis, is this huge continent unto itself, and it's a city steeped in science. They're actually working with like solar energy, channeling the sun into laser beams. They have everybody that comes onto the island are prisoners. Outside, don't allow outsiders, isolationism, and they send them to like work camps, and they use like alchemy to turn them into like kind of like Dr. Moreau animal creatures. I mean, it's got all these weird elements going on. He goes in there, he's thrown in jail, he thinks the girl turned on him. No, they're really in love. It's got the who's who of 1960s cast in there. Ed Platt, who played Chief in the Get Smart TV series. He plays the High Priest. And all the high priests, as a matter of fact, the costumes are kind of horrible. They look like birthday cakes on their heads. Frank DeCova, who played Chief Screaming Wild Eagle in F Troop, plays like this soothsayer with an eye patch and tells the future. Now, don't get me wrong, this film bombed when it came out. Unknown played the role, but I saw this when I was like 5 years old. And you watch it in the drive-in theater, you know, on these screens at those days, you know, you lived with like a 10-inch television in your house. You saw it on the screen. It was magical. You know, it's one of these favorites I have. It's worth a look. It's just kind of out there, but it's a lot of fun. And I suggest it to anybody that's interested in sword and sorcery with a lot of alchemy and science and weird gladiatorial combat. It's a fun ride.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it. I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's available. Turner puts it out sometimes. It's available on the Turner home video, but it's also on the channel every so often. It's worth a look-see. It's kind of fun. I do 2 now. I do a second one.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, number 2. Okay. Well,
Don't mind my dog. She's just being a pain in the butt here. So
oh, no. All right. Well, the next one I'll go is this one. I'm going to be winging it actually, and I like this film, but I'm going to wing it because this was brought about to the 3 to 5 film discussion at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. And that's going to be Hercules in the Haunted World, starring Reg Park, who played Hercules in about 5 films during the Peplum period in the 60s. Stars Christopher Lee as the evil guy, if you want to call it the wizard. It was directed by Mario Bava. And what makes this film really interesting, in the beginning of it, he's got 2 ridiculous sidekicks, and it's kind of fun. And you got Reg Park, who's a South African bodybuilder, playing Hercules, one of many. And it's kind of silly in a name, but he has to go into hell because he has to get something to save his princess that he loves. And this is where it gets really good. It gets that Bava touch. The cinematography, even though he probably oversaw the cinematography. It reminds you of Black Sunday if it were a color film. He has all the colors from the Giallo films in there, the oranges and the fluorescent pinks, kind of, with the Planet of the Vampires. Low budget, weird lighting. He fights zombies. He fights ghosts in the crypt. It's mediocre, but at best at times, but it's a fun approach, and also seeing how Bava, what he did with this genre. In fact, Mario Bava was a cinematographer on the first 2 Hercules movies that starred Steve Reeves. And then this was his first directorial film in the Peplum, Sword and Sorcery, Sword and Sandal. So that's it. That's my second film, is Hercules in the Haunted World, available on Kino Lorber Video, with 2 versions on there. You can also find it on YouTube or Craig's favorite channel, Tubi. And that's number 2.
that's a fun one, actually. It's not a great movie by any means, but it's fun.
No, it's fun.
Craig, what do you got?
All right, thanks. This one I don't know if this is considered pulling a Catino or not, but that's what I'm doing. I was gonna do this even after the circumstances of the last few days, when there was some unfortunate news that came out of about the one main actor in this. So my pick is Rome, the HBO series from 2005 to 2007. Now, there's no sorcery in this, but there's lots of sword fights and blood and boobs galore, and swearing, and these 2 seasons, I think, held the blueprint of what HBO used and a lot of other premium channels used for series that came over the next few years. Be it Game of Thrones or Spartacus or Black Sails or the movie 300 and so on. Basically is a historical, with some liberties taken, of course, but it goes it starts at about the end of the Gallic Wars with Julius Caesar, and it goes to at the end of the second season, it goes to where Caesar Augustus has created the Roman Empire under his name. So, but it's almost like a 22-hour movie, seeing that it's uncut and just full on fight scenes and just glorious scenes, great set designs and costumes. The unfortunate news was that from the other day, Ray Stevenson, who's the Irish actor who played one of the main characters in this, named a centurion named Titus Pullo, passed away sadly at the young age of 58. And his character, Titus Pullo, in the 2 seasons of Rome, is awesome. He just plays a very relatable character who screws up at times and is a hero at times, is a villain at other moments, and just has some classic lines of dialogue. I mean, just one off the top of my head, where they're in the deserts of Egypt when they meet up with Cleopatra. He says, "It's hotter than Vulcan's dick." I mean, it's like it's just all these crazy lines of dialogue in there, co-created by John Milius as well. He director of Conan the Barbarian. So just a great series. It's on well, now it's called Max, both seasons, and it's on Blu-ray, and I'm pretty sure it's also streaming on some other services besides HBO if you do not subscribe to that. But highly recommend it. A lot of fun, and it just a great sword fight and Sandal with some history too. The Blu-ray, there's some features that you can put on that it actually tells you some of the historical facts of some of the characters and locations that they're doing. So some of it, a good portion of it is based on real events, but of course with some dramatic liberties taken. But lot of fun if anyone hasn't seen that.
Did they ever say what Ray Stevens died of yet?
No, I haven't seen. No.
Yeah, that was kind of oof. He also played Blackbeard in Black Sails.
Yeah,
He's in a ton of stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
he's,
good roles. Yeah.
he's in the new Ahsoka Star Wars series, which hasn't even aired yet. I mean, he was the Punisher. Wasn't he the midget in Lord of the Rings, the troll or whatever? Wasn't that?
that's John Rhys Davies, but
He also played
he was in the
Volkstaff in
Volstagg.
war films.
Yeah, I think he was in the Divergent series also, and as a character in that, and some other non fantasy or sword wielding movies. But he's just so great in Rome, and there's a lot of other characters actors that are in Rome that pop up in other things like Game of Thrones. So that are some recognizable faces. But and then my second choice, kind of a guilty pleasure, but and I realize the faults of it, and I still enjoy it. And that's Krull from 1983, directed by Peter Hyams. I know Jamie had mentioned a few weeks ago. I think that he may not one of his movies that he enjoys, but
I own it too.
I
It's
realize.
okay.
I realize the faults of the movie and everything with the setting up the first. There's a good 20-minute sequence or so where it's to get the really cool weapon called the glaive, which looks like almost like a real big throwing star or knives that spins around and everything. They set up this long sequence to get this weapon, and then he never uses it until the end of the movie. And then when he does use it, it gets stuck in the in the ribs of the beast, the monster villain at the end. I just always liked it because it kind of almost reminded me of like a Dungeons and Dragons adventure come to life. I mean, yeah, it does have some nonsensical parts in it, but I've always enjoyed it. I saw this in the theaters at the time in 1983, even though I believe it kind of tanked to what I had read. But Liam Neeson has a small part in it. One of his early roles, Robbie Coltrane is in it. You get to see Freddie Jones and Francesca Annis in the movie together. And a couple years later, they both were in Dune with David Lynch's movie, another guilty pleasure of mine. So, but just a fun sort of quest movie with some swords, and the villains called the Slayers. When they get chopped up, they screech, and looks like a bug or something jumps out of their head and goes digging into the ground. So, but a fun sort, almost. I mean, it was PG rated, but kind of almost a kid's movie. But I always have a soft spot for it. I understand some of the faults, like I said, with it and with story and whatnot, but I still enjoy it. Krull from '83.
Who was the lead actor? Who's the hero? It was played by an American actor, wasn't it?
Ken Marshall. He was in Marco Polo at the TV miniseries at the time. So even as a kid, I recognized him. It's like, oh, that's the guy from that. I don't know if he did much after that. I think Davey told me he was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine or something many years later.
I thought he had more of a presence on television shows for some reason or another. That's why I was kind of surprised. He was kind of like unknown in many respects, the lead.
Yeah.
They made a stand-up arcade game based on the movie Crawl. And the game
yeah.
kind of sucks. He uses it's a little bit like Commando, where you're looking down and he's going up and he's throwing the star. The game kind of sucks, but it's really hard to find and worth a lot of money. And there's an arcade here in Columbus that has it. So every time I go there, I play it just to play like a rare thing because it's in working order. It's really cool to look at. But
I had no
All right,
idea.
we'll move on to Chris, and carry on. I'll be right back. I gotta let this dog out. She's driving me crazy. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris.
All right. Well, I'm pulling a Catino. I'm not Rich Catino, but I definitely lay claim to the term pulling a Catino. But all right, my number 4. Yeah, this one's definitely pulling a Catino, but it's a film that definitely crosses genres. I mentioned it once on an episode with Pete some time ago. Craig, I don't know if you were there, but I saw this at an Exhumed Films 24-hour horror-thon, and it could be the single greatest movie I ever saw at a 24-hour horror-thon that I had never heard of before. It is technically a kung fu film, but there are supernatural elements and holy shit, swords and decapitations galore. It was released in America in 1982 under the title Chinese Super Ninjas. The foreign exchange title is 5 Element Ninjas. And I don't know if you were there, Craig, but this thing is fucking unbelievable.
I thought you were going to say Raw Force. That was
Raw Force. I probably could have used there. There's a couple swords in that one too. But this one is just non-stop violence. It has been labeled as the most violent kung fu movie ever made. I mean, it's literally guys like hopping on one leg with all limbs severed, just blood spurting everywhere. The plot's pretty basic. This guy, the master has his kung fu school burnt down by the 5 Element Ninjas. It's like earth, fire, water, wood, and something else. I don't know.
IRS.
Yeah, something. Milkshakes. I don't know, whatever the fuck the 5th guy was made of. And then, of
Earth, Wind,
course, the master needs to relearn how to fight off these guys, but unbelievably violent and gory. If you like really hyper-violent films with swordplay, you should absolutely search out 5 Element Ninjas. I know I have it on DVD. I have an import DVD. I think there was an import Blu-ray from somebody, but somebody in America needs to put this thing out because it is awesome.
What year was this from, Chris?
1982.
Wow.
And
Was that
Harry.
the film they showed? Was that the film they showed? The 24-hour show?
Yes, but you definitely. I did mention this on I just said I mentioned this on a previous show with that you and I did. It is the most violent, swordplay kung fu thing I've ever seen. It's so much fun. I mean, just buckets and buckets of blood. It's worth checking out. Cool. So that's my number 5, and I'm pulling a Catino on my number 4. I was 10 years old. I didn't know what the fuck this movie was about. I had no idea, and I just begged my dad to take me to see a movie called Heavy Metal. I'm putting this in the sword and sorcery category just for the last episode, for the Tarna episode, because I mean the whole movie is amazing except for the Tarna episode, which is just fucking unreal. I mean, the hottest animated woman ever, going around just kicking the shit out of dudes, punching them in the face, chopping their heads off, riding on a fucking pterodactyl. It's amazing. I know we've talked about this before. For kids today, it's totally different where you go see a movie and you've seen the trailer 100 times and you've watched Midnight's Edge and John Campia and every other fucking YouTube dissect every frame of it. Like, I didn't know what this was. All I knew it was an R-rated cartoon, and I wanted to see, like, how do you make a cartoon R-rated? Well, holy shit, you have a lot of tits and beaver shots and dudes getting their heads chopped off, and that's how you get an R-rated cartoon. and it's a fucking hoot. But yeah, the Tarna episode is the the runaway segment of the. I didn't even know it was a fucking anthology. I'm like, I had no idea. But yeah, that's my number 4.
Heavy metal in its day would be the equivalent when it came out in magazine in the 70s.
Yeah,
That was like Breakthrough. And that was almost like being like a Vertigo title on DC Comics, or like what they call graphic novels. And the stories were great. Like Richard Corbin, he did the big breasted women, these artists. There was a French artist as well. And it was kind of like reading an intellectual version of Playboy, but without real photographs. Because there'd be naked women, there'd be great articles, great stories. I mean, incredible stuff. It really was.
I mean, years later, I did pick up some issues, and it's weird. In 1981, I was already like a serious comic book collector, but I guess because it wasn't like somewhat of an adult book and magazine format, I had no clue Heavy Metal was like an adult comic book.
Yeah.
No.
And the soundtrack for the
soundtrack
movie
is
too,
amazing.
and that segment in Tarnak is where we get to hear snippets of E5150 and the Mob
original version of Mob Rules
during that segment.
They've released that on Blu-ray, have they?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that for years, Dan, that was not available on any home video format.
The
And
sequel,
I had
Heavy
always
Metal
thought it was
2000.
the soundtrack was what held it up.
As always.
Yeah.
It's all about the music.
All right, Jamie.
I do have a Sword and Sorcery shelf where I keep my Sword and Sorcery stuff. And I was thinking about going a few different routes. I thought Pete would go Harry so I didn't pick any of that because I didn't want to repeat. In the 80s, man, the 80s, this genre's time, I think, with Sword and Sorcerer and Dragon Slayer and Deathstalker, Legend. They were just farting these movies out.
Oh yeah.
I almost wanted to go with Army of Darkness, but I've talked about that movie enough. I don't need to go there again. I had my 3, and then I had to come up with 2 real quick. So the 2 I came up with real quick that I wasn't going to talk about. I was going to do my 3 picks without mentioning Lord of the Rings, but now I'm going to throw in the 2 extra ones. I tell you what, you guys know, but I just got a new TV, an 83-inch OLED. The other day, I was like, the first movie I put in was The Two Towers. These movies are done so well. It's like every frame is so much work done at each frame. There's a scene where Liv Tyler her robe while walking up steps. I swear to God, it looks they probably did 100 takes just on that 1 second. It seems that way anyways. Every 10 seconds, it looks like it could be a heavy metal, power metal album cover. There's just so much love and devotion to this movie. It's almost too perfect. It's dense. These are dense movies, and they're long. I mean, if you watch the extended cuts, I think The Two Towers is like 4 hours long, close to it. And the thing is, for me, now back in the day, I used to watch him. If a movie was an hour and 47 minutes long, I was done watching the movie an hour and 47 minutes after start. Those days don't exist anymore. I sit down, I hit play, the dogs are barking, they want to go outside, I got to get a glass of water, I got to pee 53 times, I got to go upstairs and eat dinner, then the wife wants to talk about something. A 4-hour movie, if I want to get to bed by 9 o'clock at night, I got to start that movie about noon with me. You're looking at your phone. Oh, is that person still alive? I didn't know that person was in there. Oh, Billy from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. How old is he now? Is he still doing Chucky? I'm doing all kinds of movies are going on.
Glad I'm not the only one that does.
So, so it doesn't get a lot of repeat views, is what I'm saying, because you got to set aside a half a day at least to watch them. My God, are they not like oil paintings to look at?
And I don't restoration on the 4K.
Oh, it's beautiful. It looked 3D on my TV. It looked like you could into it. My next one, this isn't pulling a Catino so much, but maybe pulling a Catino should mean that you say you might do a show and then you don't show up. That's pulling a Catino.
What? So what is?
Yeah,
What,
sounds great. Maybe I'll be there. Where's Catino?
what is a pull?
This might be like pulling a Laszlo.
Well, that's his last name, Dan. Rich
No, I know
Catino.
Catino is rich, but says
Oh,
pull
well,
Catino is.
I coined the term because we would be like, perfect example was when we were like, okay, rate your favorite George Romero movies, and he was like Creepshow 2. But wait, but George Romero didn't fucking direct it; he produced it.
Yeah.
But he's like, pulling a Catino is just doing whatever the fuck you want, whatever you
Yeah.
Making his own rules, in other words.
Yeah,
Oh,
kind of
Rich Catino.
Yeah.
Well, we just rent space. That's it.
fitting a round peg into a square hole.
That's it. Yeah.
Maybe this is pulling a Laszlo, but if you got kids, young kids, maybe with the people that watch this show, if you got grandkids that are like 6, 7 years old, and you like swords and dragons and stuff, and you want to watch something with them, you cannot go wrong with this movie. I don't care that I love it to death. How to Train Your Dragon. I love this movie. I love it. It's got a lot of heart.
It is a good animated film. I will.
Yeah, a lot of heart. You can't hate Toothless, Hiccup, and their relationship. I love the relationships between animals and characters in movies. Whether you got Jerry Reed and Fred, or Clint Eastwood and Clyde, or whoever is out there. And I like it how Toothless can't fly without Hiccup, and Hiccup can't fly without Toothless. And he had to build a wing for him, and they got the whole trial and error to get the wing right. And Toothless had a cheat sheet on how to steer. He created the thing on how to steer it, but he had to write his own cheat sheet. It's just so well done. The friction between Hiccup and his dad, his dad is like the old school, and Hiccup's trying to do the new school shit. And they're like, oh, are they going to make up? And then they make up, and you're kind of crying, and everyone's flying around, and they're battling dragons at the end. It is, I think, the best looking non-4 Blu-ray 4K that I own. So yeah, if you got kids, you want to start them off with swords and dragons, you can't go wrong with that.
Cool. No, that's fun. It's a fun.
Yeah. The sequels,
it's not nearly as good. No,
not
nearly as good. But the first one's good, good natured, and
yeah, a lot of heart.
All right, my first is Jamie kind of already hinted at this, 1977 Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, which is in this set right here. It's God, where the hell is it here? Right there. I know nobody can see that. This, of course, directed by Sam Wanamaker, features stop motion photography effects by Ray Harryhausen, and just a fun movie. Patrick Wayne is the star, John Wayne's son, and it's got all these great creatures, all this great swashbuckling, and of course you got the evil sorcerer, and all the tropes of all these films. But man, I grew up on these films, and I love them so much, and I'm a Ray Harryhausen junkie, so I could watch these films over and over and over again, and I have throughout my whole life. And usually at least once a year I do a whole kind of Harryhausen, nonstop, watch one movie after the other. Just great fun. And again, there's no real blood in any of these, and it's just the violence is very tame and whatnot. But man, they're just kind of take you back to a place in time, and this is fantasy that we all grew up on. So that's my number 5. Number 4, I mean, it's hard to not include this. I'm going to go with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I always kind of think of this all as one big long, 12-hour movie at least, right? It's at least 12 hours. I think that I forget how long the theatrical runs were for all 3 combined, but it's got to be at least 12 hours, right? 11.
Yeah, the original home video version was about a little over 9 hours with the 3 of them, and then it went up to almost 12.
Yeah, I know, with all the
director's cuts.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy Rich watched all 3 director's cuts in one day.
Catino?
No, definitely not Rich Catino. And man, that was a long day, but we got through it.
Yeah, I mean, they're amazing, right?
10 in the morning.
Yeah, you have to start them early.
Yeah,
you have to. Yeah, they're great though. I mean, they're well acted, and just Peter Jackson just did an amazing job on these, and they're really very violent. And the CGI is so well done. I mean, and Jamie hit the nail on the head on a great 4K TV. You watch the 4K versions of these, it's like an experience you'll never see anywhere else. So good.
Special effects hold up 20 years later.
They really do. Yeah, considering that this now is a while ago already, like they've been
I was going to say Digital Bits, which is a big Blu-ray 4K review website. They had a huge article on the release of it, and technically speaking, the special effects don't hold up because they redid a ton of shots specifically for the 4K release. 4K. They went back and redid stuff, to improve the quality. So like Digital Bits was like, listen, yeah, everybody enjoyed seeing these in the theater. They're like, it looks far better today on the 4K disc than it did in the theater 20 years ago, because there's so many things that they cleaned up. And they even have like before and after shots of the theatrical version from 2002 and the new 4K, where they just updated it with newer special effects.
Yeah, because the 4K can show lots of imperfection in these digital effects that you don't see on Blu-ray. Because I remember the Blu-ray was mind blowing when that first came out.
Sure.
And the reason why it took the 4K so long to come out is because I had to do all that cleaning up.
Yeah, it was a lot of work they put into it.
Yeah, I've seen some 4Ks of very special effects CGI heavy films from the last 15, 20 years, and you watch it on Blu-ray and you're thinking, oh, that looks great, and then you watch it on 4K and you're like, that looks like a real cheap video game. All of a sudden you're like, it doesn't quite look so good. So yeah,
2005 King Kong, a few scenes on 4K.
Yeah,
you're like, ooh.
Yep.
But the theatrical experience back then, I mean, if you saw those
Sure.
at the time, like in IMAX or something like that, I mean, some of those scenes, like in Return of the King with the Oliphants, I mean, it's amazing seeing that, things on that end, or in the two towers, as Jamie had mentioned, when they were putting up, when the battle scenes, when the ladders start coming up and everybody, is running up the guy blows up it looks like he's a football player running with the bomb, and he blows up the wall, and I mean it's spectacular seeing it at the time on a big screen. Nothing you'd seen like it before at the time.
Yeah, amazing stuff. He put a lot of time, money, and effort into those films for sure.
He's a perfectionist. Anything he does, though, he really puts his heart and soul. Even King Kong, with even the Beatles documentary, he really puts himself.
Yeah,
Jackson puts himself full into the pool.
Goes all in. Oh yeah, that's
goes all the way in. I mean,
that World War I documentary he did.
They Shall Not Grow Old.
I saw that in 3D. Holy crap, man!
So he's the man. He's the man, and he's going to oversee his 4K restoration. So you can only imagine the input he had with that.
It's a shame those Hobbit movies sucked.
I don't mind them too much. I kind of like them, but they're not nearly as good as the Lord of the Rings. And they changed too much of the original book story around, but
and they're felt so padded.
I saw them at
the Hobbit's only a single book, and it's a small.
Yeah, it didn't need to be 3 films. Yeah, for sure.
I saw them at a triple feature at the Alamo Draft House, and I thought the movies just got worse and worse as they went along. So I just kept ordering more and more pitchers of beer. And
it got better again.
It still sucked, but at least I had a good time.
We had the Battle of the Five Armies yet.
I was like, another fucking song with these midgets? Holy fuck.
Lollipop killed.
Oh boy. All right, Dan, back to you. You're next two.
All right, next one. Well, it's so funny. I saw this film in the theaters, and when I was in grammar school, I got turned on to the Trojan War, but not reading the actual Iliad and the Odyssey as well. But there were scholastic versions they made for 8th graders, 9th graders, that were cut down as an abridged, and they told the basic story of the Trojan War. And so I was very excited about going to see the movie Troy in 2003, was it? Starring Brad Pitt, Brian Cox from Succession, Peter O'Toole. I mean, everybody is a well-known British actor or an American actor in the film, except for the girl, Diana Kruger, was her first role. But what made this film so much fun for me is that they approached the Trojan War as a straightforward action adventure film. They didn't bring in any of the real. They mentioned the gods, they mentioned things, but all the characters are there. I mean, there's Achilles, there's Ajax, there's Hector. It's just well done. I mean, if you're ever familiar with the story, Helen of Troy runs off to, she becomes Helen of Troy. She runs off from one of the kings of Greece to Troy with the young son of the king. And next thing you know, the jilted husband grabs, I think it's Agamemnon, who's the big cheese in Greece, and they're going to go over and rescue. And he wants to conquer Troy. Troy cannot be conquered. And the story is a straightforward action film, little long-winded. It came out. It was done by Wolfgang Petersen, who brought us Das Boot, and a well-known German director. But the initial release of it ran about 2 hours and 45 minutes. They put a director's cut out of 3 hours and 12. It just fleshes out some storylines. But it's fun. And Brian Cox, Brian Cox, the actor who plays Agamemnon, who was also in Succession. He's been in Super Troopers and such like this. He said when he saw Brad Pitt walk, he said, I've always been confident of my sexuality. He goes, but when Brad Pitt first walked into the room with that chiseled body, he goes, I was starting to question myself or something along those lines. And I have to admit, I sat there and when the movies and it's like, whoa, he looks pretty good here. This is kind of creepy. I got to get some popcorn. But the film is well done. And the last bit of trivia about it is the actor that plays Ajax, who is this big warrior that is with the Greeks, is played by, I think it's Tyler Mane, who played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie remake, because he's about 6'9" in real life, and he plays a warrior. But a lot of fun, worth a watch. And music's a little bit soaring. They were taking the hint from a lot of that very soaring music and women wailing and crazy shit. And some of the dialogue's a little stilted, but overall, the cast, the crew, everybody across the board, it's just a good 3 hour entertainment. You don't lose any steam with it.
You guys are a half a breath away from choosing Braveheart. I swear to God.
Braveheart too. I like movie. I just like long shit. Feels like I've just got my money's worth. It may suck, but my next pick. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go back to 1940. There's a lot of things, but 1940 about fantasy and not really sandals and swords, but Alexander Korda's Thief of Baghdad, which was a fantasy film created by Alex Korda, who were British producers who did things like the Four Feathers, these big majestic color films. Well, this is about the Thief of Baghdad, which has been done many years in films, about the young thieves played by Sabu, who's an Indian actor that came over. John Justin, a British actor, plays this prince who falls in love. He falls in love with another princess, but they think he's a beggar. And one thing leads to another. There's the evil wizard, Jafir, played by Conrad Veidt, who played Major Strasser in Casablanca. He played in The Man Who Laughs. He played in Dr. Caligari's Cabinet. He's a big, tall German actor. But he plays this evil wizard. And there's a genie in a bottle. There's a fight in a spider pit. Of course, the special effects are very, like 1940s, but once again, it was very majestic watching this film, even on the television as a kid. It's available on Criterion. It never came out on Blu-ray, but it came out on DVD, and they did a nice restoration on it. It also pops up now and then on Turner once in a blue moon, but it's a worthwhile fantasy film that really can set the bar for many fantasy films to come.
Yeah, for sure.
Across the board, and that's my next pick.
I'm amazed that has never come out on Blu-ray or 4K.
Criterion put it out and didn't put it on Blu-ray. They were just Blu-rays, and then he did the comic. Never did it, and I take that back. It is available in Europe on a Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know why it never came out here. It's just like one of those benchmark films in the world of fantasy. And,
Yeah, very influential on a lot of films that came after it. Sure.
and don't get me wrong, the restoration is wonderful. Even the one they had for years, for some reason, they had a beautiful print of this for years and negatives. So I can only imagine if they put it in Blu-ray or 4K, you might see those special effects things, but it would be just like majestic.
Yeah, good choice. Craig.
All right, my next one is it's from 1985, directed by Paul Verhoeven, and I'm going with Flesh and Blood, starring Rutger Hauer and Jennifer Jason Leigh. No sorcery, but lots of swords and lots of blood. A bit rapey, in some scenes with it, but all in all, a good epic. I think it's Paul Verhoeven's English language debut feature, and Rutger Hauer plays like the leader of a almost like a gang of thieves, and almost like it's like a whole family. I mean, there's women and some children and in there too. They basically take Jennifer Jason Leigh captive and eventually take the castle of her betrothed prince, and just keep them out and keep them out for the whole movie, pretty much. Jennifer Jason Leigh at first is a unwilling participant, then she becomes sort of part of the gang and becomes Rutger Hauer's mate, for at least a part of it, or is she just kind of playing along? So she's trying to plot her escape and everything. Has some it takes place during the Middle Ages, so you have lots of scenes talking about the plague, and with lancing boils and sickness and drinking unclean water and such, but a good adventure nonetheless. I mean, you're kind of Rutger Hauer is sort of the hero in it of sorts, but then he kind of isn't. It's a shade of gray type role for him, and but it's still a pretty enjoyable movie. I hadn't heard of it until this was one of the ones I saw this on cable back in or on Cinemax, I believe, in the late 80s, and had never heard of it before. I knew Rutger Hauer from Blade Runner and Lady Hawk, but not in this role. It's a pretty enjoyable movie for for those who haven't seen it. So that's Flesh and Blood, it's called.
Yeah,
Lady
I remember
Hawk
that
is pretty
being
solid
really
too. It's a good choice.
What's his name? Ron Lacey plays some of the characters in his band of villains and thieves. It's like Bruno Kirby, who was an American actor who played in Godfather 2. It's Ron Lacey, who played a little Nazi guy in the Raiders of the Lost Ark that tries to grab the Gestapo fellow. And then it's got Brian James, who was from Blade Runner, Wake Up, Time to Die, Leon, all that stuff. So it's got a great, interesting cast. And Jennifer Jason Leigh is quite attractive in her little princess costume there. And she turns into like his sex slave. That's what they start out. She's raped, and then she eventually just
goes along with it.
Yeah, you don't know if it's like a plot, but it's well done. It's pretty grim, very grim.
Yeah, the ending too with not to give it away, but the ending with what happens to the gang, Rutger Hauer's gang, and at the end of the movie, you feel kind of almost bad, or do you feel bad for these people? At the end, so it has makes you question yourself while you're watching it, but it's still pretty enjoyable movie. And my second pick, it's from 1981. It was one of these movies that an R-rated movie that I remember my brother and I were dying to see this, and we were not allowed to go. And that's Excalibur, directed by John Boorman. Great telling of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Love this movie, very much. Anytime now, I can sit and watch it. The use of of music and the colors with the green reflections that they show anytime the sword comes in. You got some great cast with Liam Neeson, I believe, in his film debut. Helen Mirren as the evil Morgana. Nicole Williamson as Merlin with some who has some humor, adds some fun to it as well. But then he also gets to have some great lines, a dream to some, a nightmare to others, and when he takes his revenge at the end. But Patrick Stewart even may have been one of his first films. I'm not sure, but just a really fun telling of the Knights of the Round Table, and with lots of good fighting scenes and knights in shining armor, and some spells with Merlin summoning the dragon's breath and Anal Nathrak and whatnot. So. Always one of those movies I wanted to see in the theater really bad when I saw the previews for it, and we just weren't allowed to. I was too young to see an R-rated movie at the time, and I didn't end up seeing it until quite a few years later on Cinemax or something like that, where I recorded it, and it was one of those movies where I could go to my friends would watch it, and then we could quote lines from it, just like when I mentioned about Highlander. So fun movie from '81, Excalibur.
Cool. Chris.
All right, so I'm doing 2, right?
Yep.
All right, my number 3 is a movie that, man, I wish I would have seen this in the theater in 1983, but it totally flew under my radar. Which is crazy because it hit all the buttons. I mean, it was animated. It was, sword and sorcery. It was comic book related, and it just flopped. And I never heard of it until a buddy came over with it. He rented it, the VHS. He came to my house, and he's like, "Dude, did you ever hear this movie called Fire and Ice?" And I was like, "No, I never heard of it." And we watched it, and I was completely blown away. It's an animated movie from Ralph Bakshi and Frank Frazetta, written by comic legends Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway, and it's basically two warring factions, the fire faction and the ice faction, and there's all sorts of wizards and dinosaurs and hot girls and monsters, and holy shit, this movie's, I think I bought it like 5 times now. And yeah, if they come out with it on 4K, I will totally buy it again. It's a blast if you've never seen it. Nobody really talks about it.
I think both that movie and the Lord of the Rings film that Bakshi did is nobody ever mentions them anymore.
No.
And I remember I saw the Lord of the Rings in the theater, and I was thinking, wow, this is like a weird kind of animation style, right?
It was part animated. It was part like animated human beings. There was
animation over. Yeah.
Yes.
I wasn't a fan.
Lord of the Rings got a big release, in what I think 1978. Mm-hmm. But man, I do not remember. And like Pete, me and you and some of the other guys have said how, certain movies, like I remember like Orca was in the back of like every fucking comic book in like 1977, or was it like 1975? The giant spider invasion had like a fucking ad in every comic book. Like, how did Fire and Ice like get no press? Because I never heard of this movie until my friend brought it over. But it's a fun one.
It is, yeah. I enjoy that. I enjoy it. Well, Baski's right. He also did like the Mighty Mouse cartoon when they rebooted it. But the thing is, he got under a lot of fire with that, because apparently it looks like Mighty Mouse is snorting cocaine. Mighty Mouse. That he got a lot of controversy with that. He's always been considered he's an animator because he does the rotoscope thing. And they're like, that's not animation. He's in this fine line that he kind of pisses off animators.
Have you guys seen the Ralph Bakshi movie Wizards? Or is that a good decent, or is it kind of strange?
I remember like the last 20 minutes was good, but before that it was kind of a tough sit through. It was like two brothers, from what I remember, that were like wizards at odds with one another, and it's kind of boring until the big fight scene at the end.
He also did, not to change, he also did like another politically correct cartoon in '73.
Street Fight?
Coonskin. And Street Fight, and there's one Coonskin. Yeah, they were like blaxploitation.
Yeah.
animated
He did
film.
Fritz the Cat, which was a big, you know,
Yeah. So
two Fritz the Cat movies.
He's the punk rock of animators.
Totally.
He's cutting edge. You know, really, you think about it.
And then he
Yeah.
did. Didn't he also do that Rock and
American
Roll?
Pop, and
Yes,
Wow, yeah,
and,
American Pop.
Cool
Yeah.
Cool World with Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
Johnny's. No, that was
a
the.
bunch of stuff.
Oh, I should do a Ralph Batsky show. Sorry.
But yeah, Fire and Ice. That's definitely my favorite of his.
That's a great movie.
Cool.
And yeah, my number two. Craig mentioned it. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but 1986 is Highlander. I was there when they filmed the wrestling scenes in the beginning, even though I didn't know what the fuck. They didn't say what movie it was for. But yeah, I rented it on VHS. I loved it. I went and grabbed. This is from the official Highlander. I have the. This is the samurai sword, and I also have the Clan MacLeod sword. But I don't have it in the closet. I looked real quick. I'm like, where's that fucking sword when you need it? But yeah, I love that movie. I've seen everything else, and everything else sucks from that franchise. We should probably do that episode, like movies where like everything sucks except the first movie in the franchise. Because yeah, I didn't like any of it, and I used to get phone calls in the 90s from the Highlander fan club, and they would try and sell me shit, and I would just be like, listen, man, I don't like anything but the first movie. Sell me something connected to the first movie. So no joke, they would be like, okay, if you buy the sword for $200, we'll send you a leather jacket, 2 T-shirts, a fucking letter opener. That I have a letter opener that's exactly like this. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous, you know. But they were always trying to sell me those. What was it? Adrian Paul was in the TV show. They were trying to sell me the VHS season box sets. I'm like, I don't fucking want that. And they're like, well, what about the show with Joan Jett? Like, I definitely don't want that. But anyway, the first one's great. I love it, and that's my number 2. I just bought it again on 4K.
That's right. I saw it came out in 4K.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie, back to you.
All right. I'm going to go with my T-shirt on this one. I know it's not the best movie in the world, but when I think of 1980s Sword and Sorcery, my brain goes straight to Beastmaster. Saw it in the theater. I guess it didn't do too well in the theater, but me and my buddy went to go see it. We had a time of our lives. You got to see boobs. We were alone without parents, so we didn't feel weird. And boobs are for PG. The boobs are on screen for a long time, and you get 2 pairs.
Should have called the Beastmaster.
And we loved, again with the animal-human relationship. You know, I walk down every morning. I get up, I walk down to the kitchen, and I got 2 cats and 2 dogs following me. Well, I'm watching a 3rd dog. So now I got 3 dogs and 2 cats walking around me. And I always think, I'm motherfucking Beastmaster. Look at me.
All you need is Tanya Roberts walking around the house now.
Yes. And I tell you what, that kiss he gives her is maybe the most cringe-worthy kiss in the history of film. He totally Me Too's her. Holy crap. And he's sucking in his cheeks as he's kissing her too. Like, dude, relax, man. I do like that the cat helped him score, though. Yes. Like, he had this plan with the cat. Yeah, you pretend to attack her, and I'll come in and save her, and then I'll get the score. And the cat's like, all right, cool. I'll do it, man. I love the 2 ferrets. What are they, Podo and Kodo? I was a little upset as a kid in the theater when Kodo died. I did not like that at all. But you got Rip Torn hamming it up as the villain. You got John Amos from Good Times, still alive and still working, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought he was great in it. And, this is what I want to know, though. Of course, it starts with the hero, and they come to his village, and they kill everyone, and they burn down the... How many of these movies start like that, where the hero seeks revenge because they all came to his village? And, even Braveheart has a little bit of that in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Beastmaster.
It's a fun movie. I remember Chris and I have talked about this before. When the 4K came out, we were all so excited about it. It's one of the worst looking 4Ks I've ever seen.
We watched it at my house, and it didn't look great. And overall, other than Tanya Roberts, I looked at Pete and go, yeah, it's not as good as I remember.
It's not great, but it's special to me.
It's a fun film.
Yeah, they do a
The giant
warning.
horde looks so cool in that, though. As a kid, when you saw the horde, at the beginning and
berserker guys?
everything.
Yeah, those look right with like the gimp masks.
Yeah, with
They
like
look-
the
they
big,
look cool.
big helmets
Horns,
and
yeah.
and those bird guys too, where they're
Oh
like,
yeah, they dissolve you. That's
Yeah.
really good. But they do a warning before the movie starts saying, "Look, the original was lost. This is what we had to work with.
Right,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
what you're getting. The grain comes, the grain goes. It gets worse sometimes, but hey, this is what you got."
They
Yeah.
lost the original film. Really?
Yeah, it got misplaced or put in a building somewhere and something or other. And Google it. I don't know what to go. I'm not really doing these in order, by the way, but man, this next one I sure do love. My number one is the one I'm most excited about at the moment, so I'll save that for number one. But this one did not, I don't even remember it coming to the theater. It came and went pretty quick, and that is Stardust. I don't know how many. Have you guys seen this movie?
yes.
I have, but not in a long time.
Man, I tell you what.
Claire Danes never looked hotter than in that movie.
Yes, and this is 4 years before Homeland, and she plays a star. She's a star, but she's a human girl. She falls from the sky, but she's human. Stars are big, she's little. Just roll with it. It doesn't make much sense, but just roll with it. You got Robert De Niro in it, and Michelle Pfeiffer still looking pretty sexy in 2007 in this movie. And you got Brian Cox, Daredevil.
Charlie.
And the thing is, when I rewatched this 5 months ago, it took me like 3 or 4 minutes to go, oh, holy fuck, that's Daredevil. He's really young in this movie. And he's got the British accent that kind of threw me off. But you know what? I rewatched this the other night. It's only been 5 months since I saw it. Like, I'd better just rewatch it just to see if I get some notes that I want to take and want to talk about. It wasn't a chore. I enjoyed it just as much 5 months later as I did 5 months ago and the first time I saw it. It's got a sense of humor. There's very funny scenes. The brothers, as they die, they become ghosts, and their ghost looks like how they died. So if they fell and smashed their face is still smashed. If they got an axe in the head, they still got the axe in the head. There's bits galore in this movie, and I love bits. My favorite bit is one of the brothers dies from a voodoo thing. He kind of drowns, and his corpse is lying there, and Michelle Pfeiffer uses his corpse to fight against Brian Cox, but she's using the voodoo doll as a puppet. So he gets up and he does what the voodoo doll does. So when she wants to swing a sword, she swings it's great. And Robert De Niro is very un-Robert De Niro like in this movie. I don't know how to put it, but his version of swordplay might be a little bit different from what you're thinking about when you think about swordplay. Let me just put it that way. But he does it so well. It's so fucking hilarious. And his wink at the end of this movie ties everything together. It's so great. It's a fairy tale, and there's an innocence about this movie that I just love, and it just works. Innocence about a movie doesn't always work, but it works with this. It's great. You can watch this one with your kids too. So we got one more.
I think you mean
That's one of
Charlie
those ones.
Cox, not
I
Brian
watched that
Cox.
on a whim, one time, and it's like, what the heck? See what this is, and I was like, wow, this is really a lot of fun. It's a good movie.
Did I say Brian Cox?
Yeah.
Charlie Cox.
Charlie Cox.
Yeah, I thought
Brian Cox, wasn't he a football player?
That's Succession.
Yeah. All right, my number three, I'm going to go to 1963, and that's going to be Jason and the Argonauts, directed by Don Chaffee, starring Todd Armstrong, also with Ray Harryhausen on the special effects. I mean, does it get any better than the big fight between Jason and his crew and the 6 skeletons? Or when Jason goes one-on-one with the Hydra? I mean, just amazing stuff. The Harpies, all sorts of great special effects here. It's just fun. Again, you got the evil wizards and all that kind of stuff. And I think this was originally filmed. Was this in Sense Around or? Eastman color, something like that. It was
Wouldn't
like
they
one
call
of
it
those
Dymation or something like that?
animation. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's it.
Animation.
Right,
Yeah.
because Sense Around was like where they stuck like subwoofers under the seat or something.
yeah, that was like the disaster film. So yeah, this is a Dynamation. Yeah, and just amazing achievement in film at the time for 1963. Pretty mind blowing. So that's my pick for that. And then number two, I'm gonna go with the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, which was the second Sinbad film. So again, this is the one that's again Ray Harryhausen once again. This has got the great Jane Seymour, not Jane Seymour,
Caroline Monroe.
Carolyn Monroe. That's right. Jane Seymour is in the other film.
I would argue.
Yeah, the great Carolyn Monroe. This has, of course, the Griffin and the Centaur and all sorts of great monsters and the Kali, the stone figure, and probably has some of the best sword fighting and battle scenes out of all of them. Some really cool monsters. There's monsters in all these as well. But yeah, I just love the film to death. Saw that in the theaters in the 70s. I actually was lucky enough to see most of these Sinbad films in the theaters because they re-released them. And I remember going to the Goshen Theater back in either my parents or my great uncle would take us to the theater to see these films. And just a thrill to be a young kid seeing these in the movies for the first time, because they played them on TV all the time, but seeing them in the theaters was just amazing. So yeah, that's my number two. Back to Dan.
I was going to ask if Dan ever saw, since it was in '63. I mean, he was a young kid at the time. Did you see Jason and the Argonauts in the theater at the time?
We used to go to the drive-in theater. That was like a regular thing in those days. And like I said, when you're 6, 7 years old, and Talos, the big bronze giant, literally on the screen, is like 40 feet tall in front of you. So you get this full impact. Like I said, because I came from a world of like televisions in the house were 17 inches. There were large screens in movie theaters, don't get me wrong, but the drive-in, and some of us been to the drive-in up here, the drive-in through that screen is huge. And even in the 50s and 60s, they were even larger on occasion. So everything was so majestic. So yes, in that answer, yes, I saw that, and it impacted me greatly. It set the benchmark. I think Tom Hanks is his favorite film of all time. He even introduced Ray Harryhausen when he was given an award. Yeah, it's just the skeleton battle. That's what I
was going to say. I'm sure seeing that as in 1963, that skeleton battle has to be like the coolest thing you've ever seen.
Sitting there in the car, you're going,
yeah, the teeth of the Hydra. It's like when he's like, "There's one," and there, they just rise up.
And like the acting is wooden. The actor that starred in it really, didn't go very far, if I'm not mistaken. But once again, it's Ray Harryhausen's film.
Yeah,
and it just sets the benchmark for anything. And I'm a big Harryhausen fan, so yes, whether it be First Men in the Moon to all the other Sinbad films, I was kind of torn between this film for my selection and the original Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, the first one in '57. The only thing that kept me from doing that is that little genie kid annoyed the shit out of me. He talks in that double. That's bad enough. He's just annoying. He has like a double voice, like a reverb.
Like, they do that on purpose. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So anyhow, but that
does kind of suck.
Jason and the Argonauts, primo.
There you go. Cool.
Was it me? No, I didn't. Was that his pick? Jason?
Oh, that was my pick. Oh yeah. No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, mine. I don't know if I'm. I don't know if this is another multiple Catino pick, but I don't give a flippity trademark Ryan Scout. But this is one I saw in the theater, 1984, and it's got swords, maybe a hair, maybe this much of sorcery, but it's also got spaceships, and that is The Ice Pirates. I absolutely love that movie with Robert Urich, and in small roles, Angelica Houston, Ron Perlman, Mary Crosby was totally smoking hot in that, and I love that movie. I could watch it right now. It's with the silly fighting and space herpes and all the goofiness of that movie. laughed my ass off as a 12-year-old seeing that in the theater, and just a fun movie. Just in a nutshell, in the future, water is a precious commodity, almost like a reverse Road Warrior, but in space. In space, and so you have these pirates that are stealing these large caches of ice from the wealthy planets, and selling it on the pirate moon. John Matuzak, the former Oakland Raider, is in the movie as a fellow pirate who joins the gang. But just a fun movie. Has lot of laughs in it. Has some creatures and some actual sword play in it with the pirates. So there is some of that in it. John Carradine even is in the movie for about 2 minutes or so, and it has a couple lines in it. So it was towards the end of his tenure, but a lot of fun from '84, the Ice Pirates.
John Carradine made a latter half of his career by just appearing in almost every movie out there for like 2-3 minutes, one scene, couple lines. That's it. It's like,
John Carradine became like the Lightning Hopkins of acting, because what it was is like you paid him, he would do a film. It's apparently, a rumor has it that the director Fred Olen Ray, who's done a lot of like low budget horror films, apparently like he had tons of footage of Carradine. Like he would go out and he'd hire Carradine for a day, and he'd stand behind a mad scientist lab, and he had all this stock footage of John Carradine. And John Carradine appeared like in films like Ed Wood, Bela Lugosi stuff, like for the next few years after John Carradine died. But it was footage he shot a long time ago, and he incorporated a film around it. I mean, kind of a coherent film, but yeah. So
too funny.
Gun for hire.
Yeah, Chris.
All right, this could be my all-time favorite film of all time. I have it on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, and a couple years ago I was able to acquire a 35mm film print. Conan the Barbarian. I have the two swords, but I don't know where the fuck I put them. I have the Temple of Set logo tattooed on my arm. I just love this film. I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's greatest film. I could watch it over and over again. I know they did a 40th anniversary re-release. What, Craig? Like in February?
Yeah.
I'm still hoping hope Universal does a 4K. Arnold Schwarzenegger's been doing interviews recently for his new movie Fubar, where he, mentioned he would still like to do a third Conan movie. It's probably never happening. But I wish it would have happened years ago. But yeah, I just love Conan the Barbarian.
I think that ship has sailed. He should have, if he could have done it 15, 20 years ago, he probably still could.
But Conan the King, it's called, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, that's what
there was a lot of titles. There was,
but they were
Crown
talking
of Iron, The Legend of Conan, Conan the King. Yeah, but
they've been talking about that for 25 years. Like they want, I think they usually want to do it in late 90s or early 2000s. And then
that's when he should have done it. When he still was in shape, he was younger, and he did all these other shitty movies like the Firefighter movie and the one where he fights the devil and
the Sixth Day,
End of Days,
Cop, and he did all these fucking garbage. And now most of his movies, and the last couple Terminators tanked. I'm sure if those would have done well, then he would have had a better shot of maybe getting a third Conan movie made. But I don't think we're ever going to see it.
That End of Days, as bad as it is, there's this one line I always remember. It makes me laugh every time I hear it. Is at one point in time, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger and the comedian Kevin Pollak are in the hospital room, and something weird really happens. And Kevin Pollak just walks out and he goes, "It's confirmed. I'm never going to sleep a full night ever again in my life after that." Never.
That's the one where he fights the devil over a virgin.
Fights the devil, because they see some possession thing happen, and Kevin Pollak said, "That's it. I'm never going to sleep a full night again ever in my life."
I mean, Arnold really did have a string of amazing movies and then a string of just shitters.
Yeah.
if he would have done Conan instead of he as a co-star in Red Sonja, at the time, or something. I mean, he was
Right.
he was in
If I
great shape.
remember right, I think originally it was supposed to be Conan, and there was a rights thing, and
Legally, they couldn't use the name Conan or something because they didn't have the rights to the Conan story.
One of the best scores ever, Conan.
oh, the Basil Polidor score is amazing.
Yeah,
I
it's
listen to
amazing.
it all the time.
And
I do have a little bit of love for Conan the Destroyer. A little bit.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, it
It's
has
a different vibe, totally different vibe.
Yeah.
But I roll with it. It's
And the
fun.
blonde is cute.
Olivia D'Abu's.
Grace Jones is in that. Will Chamberlain.
Grace Jones, Will Chamberlain, and Andre the Giant.
Right.
Boy, there's a cast.
Yes.
And that nerdy guy that looked like Squiggy, but it wasn't Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley.
Yes.
But it looked like him.
It was a strange,
Yeah.
strange.
He's in Batman, the first Batman. I think.
Yeah, you're right. He
Aaron-
played Bob the
He
Goon.
always turned up
Mhm.
in
Look, that
guy
guy has a good
sidekick
agent.
type things.
Yeah, he was in Aaron Brockovich. He was in Silence of the Lambs. I
Wow,
believe
that guy got around.
Yeah, he did.
Whoever
Any-
the fuck he was.
Any of you guys see the Jason Momoa Conan?
I
Oh,
like it actually. Yeah.
I
It's
didn't think
okay.
it was bad. I mean, no, it's not that. It's not Arnold,
And I will never forget, there was a really bad storm up here.
right?
Whatever, like 2012, 2013, whenever that came out. I got a free ticket somehow to see Conan the Barbarian on a day off from work whose work was closed.
Okay.
I went to the theater. I was the only person in the theater. I was like, Jesus Christ, day off from work, free ticket. I was the only person in the theater. Conditions could not have been better.
Right.
And I still hated the fucking movie.
All right, there you go. Well, you were going yet. You batted 750, so that's all right.
Yeah, I always enjoyed it. I thought it was well done.
Maybe I need to see it again. Maybe I
Oh,
think
you haven't seen it since? Oh, yeah.
between Conan 2012 and Ice Pirates, maybe I need to see both of those again.
I bought it for
That's why we
$1.50.
do this.
I'll give it another try for $1.50.
Okay.
I don't know. I would say give it another shot. I like it. I think it's pretty true to the way Conan was in the comic, at least, and which was based on the Robert E. Howard stories. So yeah, it's not the Arnold movie, but it's different.
Right.
I like it. It's
I mean, Christ, Conan the Barbarian to me, Conan and Predator, two of the most quotable films of all time.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, and that second Conan movie, man, Conan the Destroyer. I think I saw that in the theaters when it came out, and me and all my buddies got like really wasted before the movie. We went in, all we did was laugh at the entire movie. It was so terrible and so ridiculous. We enjoyed ourselves, but man, it's like a comedy.
This was that same era where like Grace Jones played a villain in a James Bond film.
Yeah.
Well, she was like the hot commodity. Was still dating
For a
the
couple years,
A View to a Kill.
View to a Kill. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
All right,
also-
Jamie, what do you got?
also Vamp too. So that's later.
All right, guys. I've been kind of talking about this movie for a little bit before I saw it. Did you ever see a trailer and you're just like, this movie is gonna, no doubt I'm going to love this movie just based on the trailer? You know, we all see great trailers and we're let down. Do you ever just know that this movie is going to, like, when I saw the trailer from Dusk Till Dawn, I said, this movie is for me. I went and it's still top 10 movie for me to this day. When I saw the trailer for Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, I said, I am going to fucking love this movie. I can't wait to see it. And, you know, I've been moving everything down to the basement. So I went a while without a TV. I went like a week and a half to 2 weeks without a TV. So before I did all that, I wanted to see this movie just in case I wanted to talk about it today. And it's not in the theater. And the only way to watch it was to spend $20 fucking to rent it. And I spent the $20 fucking.
See, it's on Paramount now.
Just in case. Yeah, I know it's on Paramount now. So I could have waited and watched it last night. But I didn't know that. Hindsight's 2020, Greg. So I fucking loved it. I loved everything about it. Now, yes, it follows the Marvel recipe, but here's the thing. This is what I was thinking. You can follow a recipe. We can all get the same recipe for a cake. All right. We could follow it, a cup of sugar, a cup of flour, all do it. But they're not all going to taste the same because some of us are going to put a little bit more love into our cake. All right. And you're going to taste that love when you eat the cake. So mine might be better than Pete's because I put more love into it. Yes, it follows the Marvel recipe, but it puts so much love into it that it's wonderful. And there's so many Easter eggs for game players. Just stupid little thing. The characters from the cartoon from the 80s show up for a half a second. They're in it. And you got things like
is Venger the villain in it or no?
I did not see, but I saw the kid with the big horns and the wizard, the guy that so I think they're like in a cage for a minute. And it's got little things like the magician has the pouch that holds, when you play the game, the pouch holds everything. You can put a skull in there. You can put this in there.
Sticks the wedge in there to hold it.
So everything, you can put a sandwich in there, Al. So Chris Pine, every time he gets something, he gives it to the magician and says, "You hold on to it. You hold on to it." And when you're playing the game, you don't really think about terrain much. You just kind of move the pieces or whatever along the way. And there's a scene where a guy's walking off into a distance and there's a pretty big rock in front of him. And Chris Pine is like, there he goes, walking really straight. Is he going to go around the rock? Nope. He's just going to go right over the rock. Kind of like the game. Yeah, I swear to God, you get a sense that these characters are on the movie, but there's bigger people above them playing the game, rolling the dice, and these are the images that's in everybody's mind as they play the game. I haven't played the game since I was 13, and it makes me want to play the damn game again. I want to watch I already ordered the 4K Steelbook. It'll be here Tuesday. I can't wait to watch the movie again. The humor is so good, but it's not too funny, to where it takes away from everything. Michelle Rodriguez is great, who, for a half a second when she was on Lost was pretty damn hot. For half a second. Now she's pretty dude-like, but she's great in it. It's everything is great. Bradley Cooper has a cameo in it that is just fucking hilarious. I don't want to give away too much, especially since this is quite a new movie. But it was directed by the guys who wrote Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming, which I didn't know. One of those dudes was the little main kid from Freaks and Geeks. If you guys ever watched that show, everybody from that show went on to bigger things. The main little kid, who was like 11, is now directing and making movies that I love. And I feel like yesterday he was just a little kid. So if you've never seen Freaks and Geeks, it's only one season. It's like, 13 episodes. Why it never went on, I don't know. It has a cult following. It's a wonderful show from like 99. Dungeons and Dragons. The other movies they made in TV shows, stay away from.
Some of the Easter eggs. Is there a 20-sided dice that shows up at some point in the movie? And
Not that I
saw. Do they
saw.
mention things like he has a dexterity of 18 or
no, but the magician gets more confidence, which you need to do spells, and he gets more experience and does the spells better. Look, I haven't played the game since like 84. I'm sure a lot whizzed by me that I missed. There's a whole YouTube video out there that explains all the Easter eggs. Okay. Like it's 15 minutes long. 5 minutes into it, I was like, what? Huh? Oh, okay. I don't know. But yeah, they're out there. It's great, but you feel like it's Dungeons and Dragons, a game.
I've never played the game, so to me, it'd just be watching a movie.
Oh, you were too cool back in the 80s, Pete. You're making fun of us kids. You're drinking beer. Look at the nerds playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I had some of those books. I had the Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual 2, and all that shit. It was fun.
Yeah, my wife
saw it. Never a Dungeon Master, though.
My wife thought it was really good. She saw it. So
okay.
I heard good things about it, but I didn't watch it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know too. It really did shitty, unfortunately, in the box office.
It made like 92 million or something, which is too bad. It has that Dungeons and Dragons name tied to it, and it doesn't have a good history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think nowadays movies based on games, whether it be board games or video games, tend to not do very well, which is crazy.
I'm hoping
to think about it because video games are so popular.
Yeah.
But I think that people
got a bad track record.
I can have fun just playing the game. I don't need to watch a movie that talks about how the game is played, right?
I hope this is one of those movies that gets popular with home home video or whatever you want to call it. One of those type of, and then it gets a sequel.
Yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see. All right, my number one, kind of predictable, but you like what you like, right? 1958. Sorry, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Despite the genie,
You just went through that whole box set, Pete.
I'm telling you, I sat and I had all these movies, and I'm like, my favorites are my favorites. You know, what are you gonna do?
That's why I didn't pick anything from it.
There you go. Yeah, the genie is annoying, but he's a big part of the film. But it's got Kerwin Matthews, who plays a great Sinbad. He's just the great good guy swashbuckler. You got the great guy, I forget the actor's name, the bald
Orrin Thatcher.
Yes. Torrin Thatcher plays a great bad guy. He's just so good in this. You've got Catherine Grant is in this, and she looks great, and all the costumes look great. The colors look great. The footage out to sea looks great when they're on the island, and the Cyclops is amazing. One of my favorite monsters from any movie. The dragon is awesome. The fight between the two of them is great. It's just a fun adventure film, and again, just to me, just takes me back to my childhood and everything I loved about these swashbuckling movies and monsters and guys with swords and evil magicians and lovely ladies and annoying genies, right? So there you go. I did want to throw out one here that I couldn't quite fit into my list, but I enjoy quite a bit, and that is Solomon Kane. If you've never seen
yeah,
it.
that was good. That was fun.
Yeah, this is quite good. Again, another Robert E. Howard character that I think, for whatever reason, like nobody saw this movie.
It got no release whatsoever in this country. So limited. Because it's
And if you let the Season of the Witch slide by, like many people did,
it's very good.
Not bad.
No,
it's good. You think it's another Nick Cage throwaway movie? It's kind of not.
No, that's actually very good. I will say also too, Centurion is another really good movie.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah, Neil Marshall.
Yeah, I have that on
disc. The guy who plays Solomon Kane is the same guy who plays Mark Antony in the Rome series. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, James Purefoy, I believe.
Purefoy.
Yeah, he's done a lot of roles. He's a good actor, actually.
Yeah,
he's really.
Yeah, good. Rome was the first actual TV set I bought on Blu-ray because I was so impressed with it. The series, great show.
Was that originally intended to only be 2 seasons, or did like something?
Oh, no, it was one of those. There was 2. I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
I read that it was very expensive. That the first season that they put a lot of money into the sets and the costumes and things like that. And the first season has 12 episodes, and the second season only has 10. And the second season doesn't have like some battle scenes in it. They're more like small skirmishes in it. And also, to what I read, it said that the actors had to take like a massive pay cut or even almost do it for nothing to the second season because of the budget constraints that they had on the second season. That HBO and I guess the BBC are the ones that sank a lot of money into it, but it was acclaimed and everything, but just very expensive for the time.
I've never seen it, and I never heard anyone ever talk about it until today.
Well, it was the early. It was kind of like the Sopranos of sword and sorcery. It's sitting
there. Yeah, a lot of people talking about it lately, which is
because it was early on, and well, that's what happened also with the series Deadwood. The third season kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and there was supposed to be a 4th season, but it was a budgetary concern because it was so expensive to build the sets, and it was too expensive to do. Same as Carnival, which was like a supernatural series that was on HBO. It cost too much money to do, or in their estimations, so they just canceled it.
Well, I was going to say, didn't HBO just recently do the same thing with the Westworld TV series?
Yep.
Yes.
There was a cliffhanger, and they were going to do it, and they're like, "Oh, fuck it, forget it."
Well, and that Raised by Wolves show too, which like ends on a total cliffhanger. I mean, that had a lot of special effects and computer animated in it, and then all that is done now, and the second season ends with a complete cliffhanger.
Well, that's it. But the whole thing with Westworld is that big shakeup at Warner Brothers. It's all involved with these things not coming out and things getting canceled. And it really makes you wonder about what is the next step, because it's being taken over by a reality TV network.
Well, these
And,
TV shows are getting so expensive to produce
Mhm.
because now they're putting budgets into TV shows like they used to put into movies. So
Mhm.
it's like,
Yeah.
you know, can you sustain doing 12 episodes a season, right? When each episode costs millions and millions of dollars to
yeah.
produce. I mean, look at the whole Game of Thrones show. I mean, that cost HBO a fortune. Granted, you know, it did very well, but not every show's
Anybody
gonna-
watching House of Dragon?
No.
I'm
I watched it.
Watched
I
it.
thought it was okay. I didn't think it was as good as Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I didn't even start watching it.
Yeah, the characters aren't as likable, but I
Characters
think
not as
that's by
likable. They cut
design.
down on most of the nudity.
Yeah.
I tend to allow it with these shows. You know, the first show series is really good. You enjoy it. They finish it. You're exhausted because like, all right, that was great. And then they want to do some kind of a spin-off. And for me, sometimes it's the same thing like with the Walking Dead stuff. I just don't really have the interest in going beyond. It's like, you know, all right, this was fine for what it is. Whatever they do next is not going to be as good. So why bother? And that's generally my attitude with it. I just
You get All in the Family, then you get the Jeffersons, but before you know it, you got Gloria's got her own show. No.
Maud was based off of All in the Family as well.
Yeah.
And the Jeffersons, Maud, you know,
Two
so
steps.
they milk, hey, they milk the rock. They get as much out of it as they
That-
you know, until the point where it just, you know,
What it's
not
all
even-
about. What it's all about.
but now
So
they
let's
cut.
have it, everybody.
All right.
Sword and Sorcery Classics, our favorites. List your 5 favorites down in the comments below. Let us know if there's some that we have talked about that you really like or others that we have not mentioned at all. I'm sure there's plenty. You know, maybe we got some fans out there of Pathfinder or Sword and Sorcery and, you know.
A lot of those dumb 80 ones. I was a little disappointed that we didn't see a lot of dumb 80 ones mentioned.
Because they're really
Well, you had mentioned Deathstalker
Yeah.
I
a
didn't
few
have
weeks
time to
ago, so
rewatch
I
the Deathstalkers.
purposely didn't pick that one. And Sword and the Sorcerer, Jamie, you had
Yeah,
mentioned that a
just
couple of
flew
weeks
by
ago.
me.
And the Deathstalker series, like number 4 and 5, is a very expensive film to buy. You can't get them, you know,
they're out of print. But people actually want them, right? Yeah.
out of print.
I don't know.
That's why God made bootlegs. We're okay.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. This episode of The Monsters Den. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Tune in tomorrow morning for Friday Morning at the Funhouse. Myself and Martin Popoff. And stay tuned for ranking the albums coming up on Sunday. I'll be ranking the catalog of Blondie. Till then, for Jamie Laszlo, Craig Kaminski, Chris Allo, and Dan Brown, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. And we'll see you here in 2 weeks on The Monsters Den. Take care.